In 1770, Bartram's Gardens, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, two of America's greatest plantsmen, John and William Bartram, walked through the family nursery.
Billy! Look at these oak leaf hydrangeas, and look how they're growing out. I swear these southern plants like the climate here better than our own native species.
It really is amazing, the plant and just how excellently they respond to garden culture.
Some truly have adapted well here to life in the nursery. I wish we could have brought them all back with us.
King George, do you think King George will fund another expedition to the south? You are the official botanist of the crown.
He has bigger things to worry about. Lots of grumbling going in the square these days. He was quite enthusiastic in 1765 when France ceded Florida to the Empire. That war that lasted 7 years. What do they decide to call it again?
The 7 Years' War.
That's the one! The king should be able to afford it, though, if he raises taxes one more time. I tell you, I will resign my post as a king's botanist. Enough of that talk. It is good to have you here back at home.
Well, that shipwreck on the Atlantic coast last year really got me thinking. I believe deeply that I need to be exploring. There's just so much in the southern woodlands that needs to be documented, and my heart feels it's my true calling.
There is so much in the wilds that we could be growing out here in the nursery.
Yes, my thoughts exactly. And John Jr. does exceed at work here at the garden. I need to be out there in the field and forest.
Yes, your brother would get twice as much done with your help.
I know. We could get the new greenhouses finished before I left.
That's precisely what I was thinking. A catalog for our garden as we've discussed. But the catalog of science needs our work just as much as this nursery. There are more plants to find than I can even write up.
I was thinking I could arrange to send press specimens and descriptions to botanists here and in Europe for them to write up. They could be the ones that fund the expedition.
Botanists and benefactors are separate classes.
I guess so.
So, how will you take credit for your discoveries?
My illustrations will be a record of what's seen.
Do you spend your days on a single drawing? Where you aim to go, you could see thousands of species in a day.
That is why it will take years.
I think you overestimate the patience of benefactors.
Well, there will be reports. I can send letters.
In the wilderness?
I could lay a course that would take me past ports at intervals short enough to appease my supporters.
And what if you never return and I have vouched for you to everyone I know that could afford it?
I would not let that happen, Father. I swam back through crashing breakers to get here to discuss this with you.
Very well, but a years-long adventure, that is no small endeavor. You cannot just expect to wander the region for years at someone else's expense. You will need a concise a route as you can traverse and still accomplish a very impressive survey. If you want me to drum up support, you'll have to put together a portfolio of your works for me to share and figure out how to document your travels.
That's what I'll do, what it'll be. I'll produce a document, a grand travel log, perhaps even a series of books. Bartram's Travels.
That could work. Your descriptions are very good, but it does no good to tell people how a place makes you feel. No one needs your metaphors. Baccharis is not the bravest of pioneers whose robe is silvery flowered mantle.
But you remembered my description, Father. I have the fondest memories of you going on about the beauties of God's green earth as we went up and down the rivers of Florida.
You should think of such things and thank your heavenly Father for the bounty your eyes perceive. Even discuss these things with your companions as we did. But if you put this trip together, your writings will be a scientific document. Baccharis is encountered most frequently in disturbed areas and blooms white September through November.
I do long to see the wonders of Earth's bounty and take them all down with a pen in their illustrious forms.
Yes, fine, but try not to use so many adjectives. Your writings must be concise. Science requires an exacting mind, not floriferous poetry woven into your prose. Anyone who would fund such an endeavor will be expecting only the most professional of results.
I know, Father. I will be precise. Speaking of, I wish I knew precisely who would fund a trip of decidedly ambitious proportions. Can you think of anyone that would be willing to be my benefactor?
Someone surely would support such a venture. Your father is the greatest natural botanist in the world. Did you know Carl von Linné said that?
Did you know he now wishes to be called Linnaeus?
I do. That should make him quite happy, I imagine. Breaking his own rules, though, isn't he? Carolus is hardly a genus, nor Linnaeus a species. Someone should surely support such a venture, but we require specific planning.
Perhaps you could contact Mr. Collinsworth. He knows the aristocracy as well as any, and they all buy his cloth, and his selections are the finest.
I could contact him. There is much interest in all the things from the New World. I think your drawings with a gratuitous shipment of plants would stir some interest that may evolve into support.
Yes, that may work. I have some sketches that I could send to him. If he could secure the funding, I would name a plant after him, or whoever puts up the funding.
I would prepare something more convincing than a sketch if you were serious about this trip. Billy, you've just arrived home, and there's so much going on here. Look at these seedlings. You'll never guess it.
Is that cabbage?
Good guess, but wrong. It's rhubarb.
That Chinese root that Ben Franklin mailed you?
Yes, I let some go to seed, I sowed them, and they jumped right up.
Interesting. Speaking of, Mr. Franklin, how are those Franklin trees coming along?
They're happier here than in Georgia. I did those trench layers for George Washington and have split them with good success. He should be ready for them soon enough, as long as his revolutionary inclinations don't get the better of us all.
Perhaps he would fund the effort.
I don't wish to trouble them with your inclinations. There's a far greater opportunity for funding abroad.
Well, what about Thomas Jefferson? He plans to make a large purchase for his estate, does he not?
Yes, he does, and I've already spent years propagating the plants for him. I need his money to come here, not to send you away from us.
He's been leveling that mountaintop at Monticello for years. Do you think he'll ever build anything up there?
Oh yes, he has it all planned out. It will be stunning. He should start building any day now.
Again, Father, planning is what I most wish to discuss with you today.
Very well then, what do you have in mind?
It will be an adventure of a lifetime.
That's all well and good, but you must have something better than that if you expect me to endorse this adventure of yours.
Yes, of course. There are many things that I'd love to collect and bring back to the nursery. I hope to have time to focus on my art as well.
And how long will this adventure last?
It must be more than a year to make any significant scientific discoveries. Perhaps 5 years.
5 years? How many benefactors do you plan to line up for this adventure of yours?
I was hoping a few people might put their money together.
You'd be lucky to get one. One would rather take all the glory for your discoveries than share them with their peers, I imagine.
I guess so.
Well, where would you go? You've been in South Carolina for years, and our exploration of Florida was extensive.
You know, there is so much more, Father. I think it should encompass travels through North and South Carolina, East and West Florida, the Cherokee Country, the extensive territories of the Muskogees, or the Creek Confederacy, and the country of the Choctaws.
You must be joking. I'll die of old age before you could document such a wide swath. That's practically the entire southwestern region.
Yes, Father. I mean, no, it would not take that long. You won't die before I get back. But yes, the entire southeastern region. How lucky we are to be alive right now. There will never be another chance to report these wonders for the first time.
Yes, I know. Few will appreciate the value of your work, but I agree it must be done, and you are exceptionally qualified to accomplish it. Very well. I will do whatever I can to help you in your preparations.
Thank you, Father. I will not disappoint you. And what would you have me bring back for you?
Let me see. I have so many notes here for you. Swarthia, a tree shrub, floriferous in late spring. The flowers large and white, embellished with a large tuft of black or purple threads in their center. The seeds are large and hard. They hang in the capsule for months. Bring seeds and small plants if you can. Very few of the ones we collected survived.
How disappointing. Those were fantastic.
Yes, indeed. Once you are west of the Chattahoochee River into the Creek Confederacy, look for the snowdrop tree Styrax grandifolium. It is a most charming flowering shrub. The flowers are snow white and of the most grateful scent.
Snowdrop tree grows throughout much of the region, does it not? All the way to the Atlantic coast.
That's the Styrax americana. Grandifolium is the large leaf variety.
I've only seen it once in South Carolina, but a Creek translator I met in West Florida said it grew all over his homeland, especially to the north and west of his home on the Sagahatchee River.
All the labels were smudged on the plum trees you posted up here last year. Every species will need to be recollected. Talk to the locals about their best tasting selections. I assure you, every family knows where in the woods the best plums are.
I do look forward to seeing so many of them again, especially the ladies.
I am sure, but keep your focus on the plants. This is what you are there for. So many of the things you have sketched from the Carolinas need to be brought into cultivation. This Zenobia is truly stunning, as is the Carolina buckeye. I'm not sure it is not merely a hybrid between the red buckeye and the yellow. Either way, it is beautiful, as there are many of the plants you told me about.
I do have some great spots planned for the first leg of my journey.
In the Creek Confederacy, though, when you pass near Loachapoka, there's an asculus with spikes of white flowers that grow as thickets on slopes and plains around there, and nowhere else. In the same area, the dwarf pawpaw, yopon holly, the rocky shoal spider lily.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course, what I most look forward to is the new discoveries. There will be species you have never seen, but also look for variations in the typical forms you have seen. So many of the promising plants we grow already could have different habits or flower types in these new areas.
Oak leaf hydrangea is truly promising. I hope to find more of this when I'm in the field.
I expect you will. That and so many other things.
So many other things.
When you're out there drawing, writing, pressing plants, collecting seeds and seedlings, be sure to stop for a minute and breathe it in. Before you know it, you'll be like me, wandering the garden, keeping company with the friends you are skilled enough to grow, too old to go collect new ones.
But Father, you are not as old as you say, and your friends are of the highest class. Surely new ones seek you out the letters that come as often as rain. Just last year, the Royal Academy of Sciences in Stockholm elected you as a member.
Surely men would have me as a friend, but they are draining. The plants, they fuel me, drive me forward, never asking a thing but what the world provides. Just remember to stop. Breathe deep and look around. Look at where you are. Look at where you started. Look at how lucky we are to be alive right now. Now pick up those plants. We've got more orders to fill.
William left for his epic adventure 3 years later. He traversed the southeast for nearly 4 years, returning to Philadelphia in 1777, just months before his father passed away. His book, Bartram's Travels, was published in 1791. The Bartrams were the first to document more than 40 species of plants and 20 animals native to the southeast United States. William named an Alabama native plant, Fothergilla, after his benefactor, John Fothergill. If you wish to walk in the William Bartram's footsteps, a good place to start is at the historical marker on just south of I-85, where the trailhead leads west into Tuskegee National Forest towards Loachapoka, onto his next stop at Wetumpka. Thank you.
Well, good evening, fellow Americans. Some of you may not recognize me, but I am James Monroe. I was the 5th president of these United States of America from 1817 to 1825. In fact, it was I that signed the documents that declared Alabama a state 200 years ago today, and I'm very proud of that fact. But let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm a Virginian. I grew up in Virginia, and I fought in the Revolutionary War along with General George Washington. I was wounded and spent a miserable winter in Valley Forge. After the war and our great victory over the British, I returned to my home state of Virginia and studied law for a few years under the governor, Thomas Jefferson. Some of you may have heard of him. He was the 3rd president of the United States. President Washington appointed me ambassador to France after I was elected to the Senate, and I spent several years in France, and that enabled me to help to author and negotiate a document that came to be known as the Louisiana Purchase. Some of you have heard of that. That added over 8,000 square miles of territory to the United States, and we did it for only $15 million. I say that was quite a bargain. And I helped to negotiate that. Well, finally, thanks to the American people, I was able to had the honor of becoming your president in 1817, and I served 2 terms until 1825. During this time, I was very interested in learning more about this great nation of ours, especially the territories beyond the Mississippi River that we had only recently acquired. So I gathered up an entourage and I traveled by horseback through the American wilderness with my entourage. I never actually visited the state of Alabama until tonight. But in 1818, my entourage and I actually entered the territory of Alabama, and we made a surprise visit to our citizens in the small village of Huntsville in the Tennessee Valley. They did not know we were coming, so it was quite a surprise, but I want you to know that the citizens of Huntsville did a fabulous job of feeding us. They had a banquet for us, very similar to the banquet that you're enjoying tonight. They had dishes made of corn, beans, roasted pork. I think today they call that barbecue, but it was roasted pork. And we had an interesting dish called muscadine molasses. Oh, yeah, it was quite a different dish than I was used to. But during the course of the evening's events, what was most memorable to me was the fact that we offered 24 toasts during the evening to America. 24 toasts. By the end of the evening, we were feeling very well. But we toasted the memory of George Washington. We toasted Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. We toasted the Revolutionary War. We toasted the veterans that are no longer with us and those that are. We toasted the new territories west of the Mississippi River. We toasted American commerce. We toasted agriculture. We even toasted our country's women. And we toasted January the 8th, 1815. January the 8th, 1815. Some of you don't seem to know the significance of January the 8th, 1816. One of the most glorious days in the history of these United States. January the 8th. Does anybody know? No one knows? Oh my goodness. Well, we might need to toast it again tonight. But January the 8th, 1815 was a day that General Andrew Jackson took his ragtag group of volunteers down the Mississippi and defeated the mighty British in the town of New Orleans, which was the last battle of the War of 1812 and guaranteed American freedom and access to the Mississippi River so we can expand our country westward. A great day in American history, and we toasted it on that night, along with everything else. Had a great evening, a great banquet, and I will remember it forever. So, here we are tonight celebrating 200 years of Alabama's history, of remarkable places, noteworthy people, and time-honored events. It's been a wonderful trip for the past 200 years for our state, and I will remember those toasts forever. And I am very pleased to see what a wonderful state the 22nd state in the United States has become. So I offer you, later this evening, we will have a final toast to the 200 years of Alabama. Meanwhile, enjoy yourselves. Thank you for inviting me to your dinner tonight, and may you have another 200 years of a wonderful statehood. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, hello there. Thomas, look at all these people. You all must be here to learn about our new community. Seems like every passing day now, more and more people are coming to learn about our new community, Auburn. Well, before I tell you about Auburn, I might as well give you some introductions. My name is John Jackson Harper. Well, Judge John Jackson Harper, and this here is my son, Thomas Harper. And his wife, Elizabeth Harper is around here somewhere. She'll probably show up a little bit later, I guess. Now, the Harper family comes from Wilkes County, Georgia, where I was born in 1789. My father's name was also John Harper. My mother was a Jackson before she married. Her name is Sarah Harper. Now, the Jackson family comes from Virginia. Now, lucky for me, I met a lovely young lady in Wilkes County, Georgia, and married her soon after, and her name was Sarah Frances Ogletree. Now, after we married, we settled down and began our family. We had 11 children, which was not unusual for the time, and began settling down. Now, soon after we settled down, somewhere along the line, we picked up our family and moved from Wilkes County, Georgia to Harris County, Georgia. Now, I believe that to be the year 1834, because that was the year I became the probate judge. Now, land speculation has always been an interest of mine, and some might say I have a tendency to wander a little bit too much, which was cause for me and my family to search out west to the territory that people speak of. So in my searching, I sought out the guidance from other fellow Methodists, as I am a devout Methodist. So soon I got word from a Methodist preacher and missionary named Reverend Turrentine, who told me about land in East Alabama, where the land was fertile, the weather was pretty temperate, and the Indians were mild. So soon I wanted to investigate. So me and a few others, we grabbed our stuff and went over down to East Alabama. Now, when we got there, it couldn't have been more pleasing. We couldn't have been in a better place. We were looking for a special place that we could start our new community, a place where the community would focus on religion and education. So, after trusting the words of the Reverend and picking up our stuff in 1836, me and my family moved to the new land in Alabama. Now, once we arrived there, we built our first house, which was a log cabin in the center of town where the river meets the middle. Now, this land was very sparsely populated and was very densely wooded, so many trees and a lot of wilderness. Now, after that, with my land grants from the government, I began giving out plots to different groups of people to help build our community. So first, of course, I gave land to the Methodist Church, and this was an ideal piece of land where we could start our community and build it in the right direction. I hope that this is the place where our Methodist Church will stand for many, many years to come. Now, next, called to be generous in the eyes of God, I gave many different plots to the other denominations in our area, so as to spark many opportunities for worship. So, of course, I gave land to the Presbyterians, the Episcopals, and even the Baptists. Now, I do hope that all of these churches and new denominations will practice temperance and mild alcohol consumption, but that may be too far of an expectation. But soon after that, across from the Methodist Church, I gave land to start the female school. And after that, I took 6 acres and devoted that to the community cemetery. Sadly, as one would not expect, the first to be laid in the cemetery was my eldest son, William, who died in 1838. He had succumbed to consumption, something that took many, many people during those days. It had no boundaries. But moving on from that, I might need to backtrack a little bit and tell you a little bit about how our community was named Auburn. But even though I am the founder of the town, I cannot be accredited to the naming of our new community. That is a story for Thomas and his wife Elizabeth, who's around here somewhere, to tell you. So Thomas, why don't you and Lizzie tell us about how Auburn was named?
Alrighty. Lizzie, where are you?
Here I am, Thomas. I'm so sorry. You must know by now that I simply cannot resist stopping at every piano I meet, and this building has several. They are simply splendid. What did you need?
Father here would like us to tell the story of how we met and how our lovely community here came to be called Auburn. And so why don't you let me start, and then you can fill in any information that I might miss, because I might have forgotten some, because it was kind of a long time ago.
That sounds perfect.
Well, so, Father decided that it was good for us to come to a new community, and so we had to start getting supplies, all the way from Harris County, which takes a long time because all you have are horses and wagons. So, on one of those long journeys, I decided that I should probably stay and just take a rest for the night, because we've been traveling for a long time. I was lucky enough for there to be a vacancy at a certain Colonel Slepson Taylor's house.
Yes, that was a home in Jones County, Georgia. And it was there that you met the 15-year-old daughter of the colonel, Miss Elizabeth Taylor. I believe you were smitten. Long dark hair and gray eyes. Many a suitor I did have.
Yes, and naturally the conversation came to the new community and all our hopes and dreams for its future. But it needed a name, because you can't have a town without a name. A certain Mrs. Freeman suggested the name Geneva. I will admit, we were not that enthused by that idea, including myself. So.
Well, I had a much better idea. Like many of the educated school children of the time, I was reading Oliver Goldsmith's poem, The Deserted Village. It's still one of my favorites, and I just happen to have a copy of it here today. Would you all mind if I read you a little bit of it?
Please.
Sweet Auburn, loveliest village of the plain, where health and plenty cheer the laboring swain, where smiling spring its earliest visit paid, and parting summer's lingering blooms delayed. Dear lovely boughs of innocence and ease, seats of my youth, where every sport could please. How often have I lauded o'er that green, where humbled happiness indeed each seen. How often have I paused on every charm, the sheltered cot, the cultivated farm, the never-failing brook, the busy mill, the decent church that tops the neighboring hill, the hawthorn bush, with seats beneath the shade, for talking age and whispering love is made. Oh, that pot is simply divine. I suppose we'll have to leave the remainder for another day.
Well, I like that name suggestion, and more importantly, I liked her. So, we had a straw vote, and we all chose, the majority chose Auburn over Geneva, so we became Auburn, the loveliest village on the plains.
And I believe it was not short after, as you'll recall, Thomas, that we were married. At 16, I became Mrs. Elizabeth Taylor Harper.
Yes, I recall. Me and my brother John got to open up a grocery store, and we also had the pleasure of hiring the first ever teacher in Auburn, and I believe his name was Judge Christopher C. Flanagan. So with a name like Flanagan, I'm sure you can guess that he was an Irishman.
What I remember was that I had the very first cooking stove in town, and the very first piano.
All in all, this community has been very good to us. I even hear that soon the railroad will be built from here to Ball's Fork. And even further in the future, we will be the connecting point between Montgomery and Columbus. Now, one can say that this town has continually grown and developed over its time, and a founder of a town can only hope that it will continue to grow. I think I've heard recently about some land out west, even further, maybe Texas. I've heard that Texas is a good place to start up some communities. The natives are a little bit crazy, and the land's not as fertile, but I think we might have to venture out that way sometime soon. What you think, Thomas?
Yeah.
Well, there I go again, thinking about the horizon too much. But thank you so much for listening to us talk about our new community, and we're glad you came, and all we have to say to you is welcome to Auburn. Please enjoy your time. Come join us on Sunday for the services, and maybe you'll leave a little bit more educated from your time here. Goodbye.
Where are those merchants? I need that shipment. Where did all my supplies go?
Oh, I love it.
Where's the supplies? Oh, yes! How exciting! Y'all must have come in on the train. Actually,
That's right.
Actually, I'm a nurse who's working down in Auburn. We opened up Langdon Hall and Chapel Hill and the old Main. And we are trying to help all the soldiers. The war that's been going on, I've been serving as a nurse in it. And we're just trying to find the merchants. I heard they came through a minute ago. I was looking for my supplies. We ran out at Langdon Hall. I came in to try and get everything we needed. But I'm trying to get it in between the next shipment on the train. We're supposed to be getting soldiers relatively soon from Atlanta. Most of them are Texans, actually. The Texans have to help us quite a bit. They've been actually funding most of our stuff. Because all the Texans are fighting in our war. So we're very, really glad that they've been helping us. But I've been working as a nurse for a while. I actually have a couple stories that I'd like to share with y'all that I think are pretty important to this area. So, the first day I was a nurse, there was a sudden summons of gray dawn and somewhat startling to the 3 days nurse like myself, tribulation periwinkle. And the thundering knock came at the door, and I sprang to my bed, prepared if necessary. It's the wounded from Atlanta. We still have half our hands full in 15 minutes, I heard. What shall we do? I asked. Wash, dress, feed, warm, and nurse for the next 3 months. That was a really long time. I couldn't believe it when you told me that. The beds were ready, and they were getting impatient for the men to come. We were warned. Now you will really begin to see what hospital is like. For you won't have time to sit down, and you may go to bed by midnight if you're lucky. Let's see. I have a couple pretty interesting stories. So later that week, I'm free to confess that I have had a realizing sense of the fact that my hospital bed was not a bed for roses just then. For the prospect came to me that the unmingled rapture. My 3 days' experience had begun with death, and owing to the defection of another nurse. A somewhat abrupt plunge into the unpretentious of a ward comparing 40 beds, where I spent my waning hours washing faces, serving rations, giving medicines, and sitting on the chair with pneumonia on one side, diphtheria on the other, 5 typhoids, and the opposite, a dozen diphthalated, I've never been able to say that word quite right, patriots hoping, lying, and lounging about, all staring more or less at the new nurse, who served and told agonies, but concealed them under a matronly aspect of spinster could assume, and blundered through her trying labors as a Spartan firmness, which I hope they appreciated, but I'm afraid they really didn't. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So the old maid had a college classroom building before hospitals were needed, and the institution of higher learning for enthusiastic young men and women, and the many doors still bore their old names. Now beds were prepared to the prior classrooms and open hallways, many already teemed with tired men who fell down desperately anywhere, and drowsed to the smell of food roused them. Round the great stove was gathered with the dearest group I had ever saw. Ragged, gaunt, and pale, mud to the knee with bloody bandages, untouched since the days before. Many bundled up in blankets, coats had long since become useless, and were all wearing disheartened looks such as proclaimed defeat. I pitied them so much. I dared not speak to them, though, remembering that they had all been through Atlanta, and I yearned to serve the dearest of them all. Actually, the other day, I was down at Auburn First Baptist, similar to, not too far down the road from Old Main. And a couple of years ago, well, I guess not a couple of years ago, I've lost track of time. Time runs so weird when you're in the hospital. But the big storm came through, and we moved all of our patients down under all of the pews, and the biggest commotion I ever heard came through, and it rattled the whole ceiling. And when I looked up, the ceiling was on top of all the pews we were laying under. And as we got, all the nurses got up to check on all of our charges. All of them were okay, because we had stuffed them all under the pews. It was a very lucky day for us. But my daily duties became more of a routine as I got better organized, and my ward was now divided into 3 rooms. And under favor, the matron and I had managed to sort out the patients in such a way that I called what my rooms were my duty, my pleasure room, and my pathetic room, and worked in each way a different way. One, I visited with a dressing ray full of rollers, pesters, and pens, and another with books, flowers, games, and gossip, and a third with teapots, lullabies, and consolations, and sometimes a shroud. As the daily dismal march was a routine development at the end of each day. The next task was usually as a minister to their minds by writing letters to their anxious souls at home, answering questions, reading papers, taking possessions of monies and valuables. Pocketbooks, purses, and miniatures and watches were sealed up, labeled, and handed to the matron. Still such times as the owners, therefore, were ready to depart homeward and campaign on. The letters dedicated by me and revised by me that afternoon would have made an excellent chapter for some future history book just on this war. They were full of affection, pluck, and bad spelling, nearly all giving lively accounts of the battle and ending with a somewhat sudden plunge from patriotism to predator, inspiring Ma'am, Mary Ann, and Aunt Peters to send along with the pies, pickles, sweet stuff, and hopefully apple pies they wanted very soon. And then we had all the medicine come through, and the doctors would give it out, and we would sing lullabies as they came through. And this was followed by grateful glances from the lighted us to bed, where rests the sweetest made of pillows, soft while night and nature took their places, filling the great house of pain with the healing miracles of sleep, and his divine brother death. I leave you with this last entry. He seemed to sleep, but nothing on his tired white face caused me to listen at his lips, on his breath, but none came. I touched his forehead, it was cold, and then I knew that while he waited, a better nurse that I had come to give him a colder draught. And healing him with a touch, I laid the sheet over the quieter sleeper, whom no noise could now disturb, and half an hour later, the bed was empty. It seemed a poor requital for all that he had sacrificed and suffered. That hospital bed, lonely even in a crowd, for there was no familiar face for him to look at on his last, no friendly voice to say goodbye, no hand to lead him down the gently valley of shadow. And he vanished, like a drop in the Red Sea, upon those shores that the women so stood lamenting. For a moment, I felt bitterly indignant. and as it seems carelessness of the value of life and the sanctity of death, then consoled myself with the thought that there is a greater muster roll and called. These nameless men might be promoted above those many who tall monuments record the barren honors that they have. Those were some of the men I had. Oh, wait a second. I must go. The soldiers are coming in soon. Don't mind me.
You know, John, this tuberculosis problem really concerns me. There's too many people dying, especially young people. I tell you that the problem comes in with these, when you look at the statistics, if you count 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 in 7 dies from tuberculosis. We've got problems with that, and we've started sanitariums all over the country, but I'm not sure that sanitariums are exactly the solution to our problem. I think that prevention and hygiene, that's where the solution lies.
Yes, Doc. First it was smallpox, now it's consumption. What we really need is exposure, or the problem, I agree with Robert Koch, him and his postulates. He was right. This is not a genetic problem. It's contagious. But what are we going to do to solve this problem? How can we keep people from getting exposed to this bacteria? I already have my patients changing their habits. The women are wearing their skirts shorter. Men are shaving their beards, not their mustaches, their beards. Children are washing their hands before every meal, brushing their teeth 2 times a day, sleeping at least 10 hours every night with the windows open, and absolutely no spitting. I can just see those bacteria flying all over the place.
Now, those suggestions are fine and dandy. However, I feel that the best way to control this is by proper inspection of our dairy products and our meat products. Now, we're doing things at the College of Veterinary Medicine that promote new ideas. First of all, you've got to understand that human tuberculosis is related to cattle tuberculosis, which is related to the cattle industry. If you look at every hamlet, village, town, even the big cities here in Alabama, you'll notice that each of those has a dairy and also a place to slaughter animals. The problem comes in is that we do not have properly trained individuals who can come in and inspect these places. What we need to do is to make laws that provide for the training of these individuals so that they can go in and make sure that the food is safe to consume. I've been working with the city of Montgomery, and I've come to an agreement that what we're going to do is to start inspecting our dairies down there, and then that will lead to inspecting the slaughterhouses. One of the things that you've got to understand is that this is a program that has to have cooperation between farmers, veterinarians, owners of dairies, and politicians to make sure that these ideas are enacted. That's the only way that the problems can be controlled.
More power to you, Dr. Carey. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to keep my patients out of this horrible sanatorium. Really, what we need is more exposure to outdoors. Overcrowding is the real enemy. We need more access to recreational areas. By the way, my family has a tract of land the university might be interested in. It would be good for a football field, baseball, maybe even track. It's actually large enough that the high school could use it for recreational activities and sports. More open air activity is really what we all need.
Hey guys!
Hey, well, look what the cat done drug up on the front porch.
Greetings, George. How things on the other side of campus? All well in the history department?
Well, we're doing all right, but it's really difficult to get my students to focus on their history courses because all they want to think about is agriculture, engineering, and we are getting excited about the football game.
Yeah, Coach, speaking of football, how do you think we're going to do against that Georgia team?
I think we'll be all right. They just beat Mercer 50-0, but I think we still have a chance. I hear some of the guys are pretty big, though, maybe 180 pounds. But I think it'll be a close game, but I think we have a chance.
I do really like what you and Georgia's Coach Rudy have done, choosing school colors for the two teams. I think that's really a smart thing to do.
Well, we wanted to bring the fans together. We wanted to have some school spirit and get everybody behind us.
Ooh, how I love that burnt orange and blue. Word is we're going to be the Tigers, and we're orange and blue. All I can say to that is go team. That lacks a little something, you know? Go team. Go team. We need something with a little more oomph. A more powerful and inspiring battle cry. One where we can stand up, hold it out, be proud, and unite. We also need some way to more easily recognize one another.
I've never heard such a stupid idea in my life. All you have is grown men running up and down a muddy field kicking the ball, and people on the sideline saying, kick 'em up a gum tree, kick 'em up a cactus. We think people need more practice. All that money wasted on something like that. I tell you what, at the College of Veterinary Medicine, my students march. They don't play football. We don't do holidays either. This is the problem with this nation is there's too much playing going on and not enough preparing for the future by work.
Oh, Doc, don't be such a stick in the mud. By the way, Coach, I hear that you're working on something special, a school treat. How's that going?
Oh, glad you asked. I have been working on something. I thought I would write something that would express all of us, all parts of the university, and I got something you might like. Let me read a few lines. I believe that this is a practical world, and that I can count on only what I earn. Therefore, I believe in work, hard work. I believe in education, which gives me the knowledge to work wisely and trains my mind and my hands to work skillfully. I believe in honesty and truthfulness, without which I cannot win the respect and confidence of my fellow men. I believe in a sound mind, in a sound body, and a spirit that is not afraid, and in clean sports that develop these qualities. I believe in the human touch, which cultivates sympathy with my fellow men, and mutual helpfulness, and brings happiness for all. I believe in my country, because it is a land of freedom, and because it is my own home, and then I can best serve that country by doing justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly with my God. And because Auburn men and women believe in these things, I believe in Auburn and love it.
That sounds good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm here because I, too, have a vested interest in education, just like the gentleman before us. My name is Julia Tutwiler, and I was afforded all kinds of educational opportunities. My family thought that was very important, so I got to travel to New York and France and Germany, and I studied in all of those places. And then later, I received a teaching certificate at Washington and Lee University. And then I returned home to our great states. But I was appalled to find that the doors were shut tight to ladies who were seeking higher education. Now, frankly, I could not stand for this. So, in 1872, I began to advocate for women to have higher education opportunities as well. Isaac Tishner was the first man that would listen. He was the president of the newly named Agricultural and Mechanical College of Alabama. He tried, but sadly his attempts went nowhere. But, never the quitter, I worked for 20 years and I gave a critical speech before we were finally able to integrate ladies into our two colleges.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Brown, and my father, William Leroy Brown, was selected as the Alabama Mechanical and Agricultural College president, which later became the Alabama Polytechnic Institute.
He heard Mr. Tutwiler speak to the Alabama Education Association and was moved, largely in part from my own affinity to learning, to persuade the Board of Trustees to allow women to matriculate or to enroll for financial as well as moral purposes.
It wasn't full co-education, but it did allow us to enroll into Auburn as long as we were 18 years or older.
So, in 1892, we became the first 3 women to enter as students.
I wrote to the Agricultural and Mechanical College and I told them this is too good to be true. I had made clear my thoughts. I was appalled that the most stupid boy in Alabama could attend college for free, yet, like these intellectual women, they were denied that opportunity. I was sure to share my thoughts with Alabama as well, and sure enough, in 1893, they allowed girls to attend as well.
I had moved from Arkansas to Auburn after my mother died, and I moved in with my aunt, Mary T. Hollenfield. I was very happy that I was in close proximity to the campus. I was very excited that I was there in such extraordinary times.
My father was a businessman and later became the mayor of Auburn.
This situation would hold true for many of our fellow women students to follow. Co-eds were often the daughters of townspeople and faculty who would ride the train from Opelika or simply walk to campus or classes.
Now, we were allowed to attend school, but straight after classes we had to leave because we weren't allowed to loiter or flirt with the cadets.
Now, fraternization was not very good, and so women were able to
Go on dates, right?
Yeah, they were able to go on dates after school, but most often they'd go to attending churches with a view, or they would go on study dates. The most frustrating part was certain professors believed men were superior, and so they wouldn't call on us during class.
This just made me want to work harder. Also, women were excluded in the early years from the Glomerata, which was the annual college yearbook, and the Orange and Blue newspaper.
Long after our time, women education continued to be slow. They wouldn't call on us in class, and we weren't allowed to speak audibly in class. We felt like we had little recognition other than our names being called on the roll list.
These ladies took full advantage of their wonderful educational opportunities. 2 years after they enrolled, they graduated. They had full honors and they received thunderous applause.
I went on to become Alabama's first female graduate student and won a very competitive scholarship. I later opened the Conway Brown Preparatory School.
In 1894, I graduated alongside these wonderful women. And later in 1896, I married George Clark, and still to this day, we continue to be active members of the Auburn community.
I graduated with honors, and we all worked very long and hard together.
Alabama has come a long way, but we have a long way yet to go. I envision a future where women and men can pursue educational opportunities together. It has come to my attention that there is yet another problem in our state, the prisons. I don't know if you know, but they have never been inspected, and men and women are incarcerated in the same facilities. I do believe that educational opportunities could benefit these folks as well, but that is for another day. Alabama is a great state. I'm sure you will agree with me. I took some time later and I wrote a poem just to say how wonderful our state was, and that poem later became our state song. We're going to share it with you now.
Alabama, Alabama, we will be true to thee. By the southern shores where growing, by the sea the orange tree, to thy northern vale where flowing deep and blue thy Tennessee. Alabama, Alabama, we will lay
The state oversees the school and doesn't see fit to provide a principal, much less electricity and plumbing. It's no wonder we only had school for 3 months last year. I'm glad we're going to be able to serve students for 9 months this year. I am sure grateful for the Rosenwald money that helped build this place. Lord, bless the children that come through this door.
I won! I wasn't even trying.
All right, that's enough. Let's get settled. Yes, Peter, please come to the front with the rest of my ABCDarians.
Come on in, class, and get settled. Looks like we're all here. Wait a minute, where's Thomas?
Sorry, Miss Gibson. I walk this longer every day. And Mom goose wiped me before I left for waking the baby up. Not my fault she wakes up at the drop of a hat.
Thomas, we've talked about this. You do have the longest walk, but it's no excuse to be tardy. It's only 4 miles. You're going to have to learn to make it work. And as for getting goose whacked, I can't say I blame your mom. Have a seat. All right, let's get situated. Priscilla, you know my ABCDarians. Sit down front. Please move up that way.
It's time for our daily elocution practice. You will each be reciting from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland.
Today we're going to begin with our daily elocution practice. It's the girls' turn, and they'll be reciting from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland.
How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail and pour the waters of the Nile in every golden's tail?
How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly he spreads his claws.
And welcomes little fishies in with gently smiling jaws.
Excellent work, boys. I can see you've been practicing.
Thank you.
That was wonderful, girls. I can see you've been practicing.
Thank you, Miss Gibson.
Student enthusiasm is key to our success here. This is the first of over 5,300 Rosenwald schools for black children built between 1913 and 1932. Julius Rosenwald, CEO of Sears Roebuck and Company, and Booker T. Washington, principal of Tuskegee Institute, made it possible for these children to attend school by starting this project, and in Loachapoka of all places. All right, Mitchell.
All right, Thomas.
I believe it's your turn for reading.
Today we're going to begin reading Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
You don't know about me. Without you, you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. But that ain't no matter. That book was made by Mr. Mark Twain, and he told the truth, mainly.
There was things he stretched, but mainly he told the truth. That is nothing. I never seen anybody but lied, one time or another. Without it was Aunt Polly, or the widow, maybe Mary. Aunt Polly, Tom's Aunt Polly she is, and Mary, and the widow Douglas.
Widow, Thomas.
Yes, ma'am. The widow Douglas is all told about in that book, which is mostly a true book with some stretches, as I said before.
Do I have to keep reading, Miss Rousseau?
That's enough for now, Mitchell. We'll continue tomorrow.
Now everyone, let's practice our handwriting. Please get out your tablets and write the word hot. Sometimes a one-room schoolhouse can be quite a challenge, but the older students do help when they're able to teach the younger ones. Goodness, children, it's time for nooning. Please gather your lunch pails. We'll continue arithmetic after you've eaten.
Yes, Rosenwald would be proud of these young men and women, I think. He grew up poor and believed in self-help. Consequently, he only paid for some of the expenses to build the schools. The rest was raised by the community, both black and white. All schools were built from a selection of plans designed by an architect at Tuskegee Institute. These plans would become models for education both far and wide. This school is the only source of educating black citizens in the area. Goodness, children. It's time for nooning. Please gather your lunch pail, and we'll continue with arithmetic at a later time.
Will a circle be unbroken? By and by, Lord, by and by, there's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Come on, y'all! Will a circle be unbroken? By and by, Lord, by and by, there's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. You know, I heard, I'm Dr. George Washington Carver. You know, I heard that song on the Grand Ole Opry broadcast last Saturday. Just can't get it out of my head. You know, it's a song about loss. You know, mother dies, I hate to see you go. And the mother's the heart of the family. You know, we got some hard times now. It's difficult. This depression is rough on all of us. We all know what loss is. And if things don't work out for us now, like they did in the old days, slavery times, we know there's a better place in the sky, there's a better home. But I'm here to tell you, if we take care of our present and mindful of our past, we can have a better future. Now I'm here to talk to y'all about agriculture, because that's what I do. Now, I know y'all had some sweet potatoes, didn't you? Oh yeah. Did you know the sweet potatoes come in different colors? There's yellow, white, pinkish, red, and even purple sweet potatoes with their own taste. You know, I wanted to make sure I got everything down, so I just took some notes. I am a professor, you know, and when we do lecture, we do like to have our notes. Now, sweet potatoes are perfect for Alabama because they love our soil. You know, they don't mind a little heat, don't mind a little drought. They're root vegetables. They go down in the ground, they soak up the minerals and all the good things that the earth has to offer. You know, you can take the tops off, you can cut them, chop them up like a salad, or you can even cook them like greens. Now, there's different uses for the sweet potato. You know, we got candy, coffee, vinegar, molasses, sugar, and even after dinner mints. And there's even something you probably didn't know. There's other uses for the sweet potato. We got paints, stains, dyes, wood fillers, paper, medicine, and alcohol. I see you. Don't get excited because I said alcohol. I'm not talking about that kind of alcohol that you drink. You see, at Tuskegee Noble and Agricultural Institute, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't gamble, we don't even dance, because we can't do anything that reflects badly upon the school. And you best not miss chapel. Because Dr. Washington's up there on his horse, and he's riding around. And he's looking to make sure all the ladies come out the dormitory and they head off to chapel. They're looking to make sure all the men have their shoes shining, they got a shirt, jacket, and tie on. And we go down to chapel. We thank God for what we've learned that day. We ask for strength to sustain us. We ask for hope in our hearts to see a better future, a chance to take our learning, put it out in the world, and help somebody along the way. Yes, sir, that's what we did. Now, you know, the other thing that I worked with was peanuts. I'm sure you heard about that. That's about 300 different things you can do with peanuts. I'll mention just a few things, though. We had soap, glue, believe this or not, shaving cream, medicines, flour, even skin lotion. Now, there was a man by the name of Henry Ford. Now, you probably heard about him. He made the Model T. And That wasn't his best. His best invention was the assembly line. You see, you start with a frame, and everybody has a station. And they all put a part of the car together. By the time you're done, you're rolling on a brand new car right off the assembly line. Because Henry Ford said, I don't want to make anything that my workers can't afford to buy. Now that's serving somebody, you know? But we also tried to find different ways for the peanut. We were even thinking about trying to find an alternative for rubber from the rubber plant, because during the Great War, rubber was in great supply. It wasn't in great supply. We needed to try and find more of it. But our best invention was an alternative fuel. Something other than petrol. Because petroleum was way down deep in the ground. It was expensive to get up and it cost a lot of money. We experimented with a biofuel. That's biology. That's coming from the ground, from the plants. You know what we did? We came up with ethanol. You know what ethanol is made from? Corn! Just like the sweet potato and the peanut. You can eat it and you can use it for something else. That's using our heads. That's being smart and putting our hands to a better purpose. Now, you also didn't know too that Mr. Ford, he had two versions of the Model T. One ran on ethanol and the other ran on petroleum. Now, I wish, doggone it, I really wish I could claim this invention for myself, but I just can't. That's probably everybody's favorite. Peanut butter. No, I didn't make that. You see, the Aztecs and the Incas, way back when, they experimented with edible peanut paste. And then there were some people from up north. And what they did was they worked with machinery, added oils and things, and solidifiers, and it came up to the peanut butter we know, but that was a long, involved process. Then there was a guy from Battle Creek, Michigan. He patented a machine, takes raw peanuts and puts them right into peanut butter. Speeded up the whole process. It was mass production, just like Mr. Henry Ford. You might know his name was John Henry Kellogg. You know, he made a couple of breakfast line cereals. You know, anybody know the most important cereal he made? Corn Flakes, that's right. You can use it to drive your car, and you can eat it too. Now, I got to tell you that we have problems with our soil here in Alabama. It's rough. It's tired of cotton, and only cotton. We have done destroyed the soil here. It's all red and sandy. And a little bit of cotton you could grow, well, you don't get much money for it. Can anybody eat cotton? No, you can't eat cotton. But in the laboratory and in the field, we discovered a thing we call crop rotation. If you could plant soybeans one year, cowpeas another year, peanuts another year, you add nitrogen right back into the soil. You put back the minerals that was taken away and stripped away from cotton. You're good to the land, right? Now, remember Jesus' second commandment? Treat your neighbor as yourself, right? So, you know, if I go up to you and I say, I need some help here, maybe putting something together, and you and your husband, you come over and you help me out. And then, say you come over there and you say, you know, Dr. Carver, I need some, I'm trying to plant some cowpeas here. How do I do that? And I come over and help you. We're good to each other, right? Well, we got to be good to this land too. God put all of this under our feet. Everything under our feet is at our command. Even the birds in the air. But we got to stop taking and not giving nothing back. We got to start treating each other better. We got to start listening to the Lord and what He told us to do. Because when we do that, He's going to give us our heart's desire. Now, I got a riddle for you. What does education and manure have in common? Y'all know? It don't mean nothing unless you spread it around. So we invented the Jessup wagon. And we took education, college education from where we were out to the farm. Education from college going to wherever you live. You know, I think that's an idea that has a future in it. So that's what we did. We went out to the small farms. We showed people how to grow their crops, how to analyze their soil. And my students went with me. And you know, we did well. I felt good going and helping our colored farmers because we were going through some hard times right after the war. But Reconstruction came and some of us were sharecropping and we tried to get our money together to get a little piece of land. And the good idea was to make as much off of it as you possibly could. How to support your animals, how to do all of that. And that's what we did. We were serving a cause greater than ourselves. Now I have to tell you, I had some hard times when I was growing up. Now I was born a slave. And my daddy, he was owned by the man down the road. And me, my mama, my sisters, and my brothers, we belonged to the Carver family. That's why I got my last name, Carver. And one night, the Night Riders came. The Ku Klux Klan. They were some dangerous people. They was big back then. They took my sisters, sold them down to Arkansas. Took me and mama, sold us down to Arkansas. Now I heard my daddy had died hauling some wood. And I heard my sisters died. But Mr. Carver, he spirited my brother James off into the woods and hid him. You know how he got me back? He traded a $300 horse for me. He was hoping to get me and my mom, but we couldn't find mom. So it was just me and James. The two of us were left to console each other. Time went on, and James had to go his way, went down to Arkansas, and I was going my way. Now in that time, I learned how to cook, and I did some cooking. I even cooked at a hotel one time. And I also did laundry business. Yes, I'm a man that washes clothes. That's right. And I iron too. And I made a lot of money doing that. I made so much money, I got me to Simpson College. And when I got to Simpson College, I started thinking about those times I'd walk in the woods, and I would see the trees, and I'd watch the animals, and I'd enjoy the silence. I'd say to myself, Lord, if you could just teach me some of the wonders of nature, I'd share it with the world. And he said, George, you just keep studying. And I started painting then. You know, I started mixing different colored clay, and I started working with dyes and flowers, and I started painting nature, but that wasn't enough. I had to know some of the secrets of nature. Now, in the South, most of us who stay here, we were raised on the farm. We work from cane to cane. Everybody know what cane to cane is? What is it? You know? Can't see in the morning, but can't see at night. That's right. Some of y'all farmers know exactly what I'm talking about. And we was bred in the land. We knew what it was. And when we had a piece of it for ourselves, we could watch our crops grow. So I studied agriculture. Even taught at Iowa State for a while I went to school. Then I got the call from Dr. Washington. Told me to come over here, cast down my buckets where I was, and I did. I work with my students, and I work with small farmers, and I got to tell you something. After we started working, we went to some of the poor white farmers out in the suburbs. They weren't sure about what I was talking about, so they started talking to their neighbors. And they said, my goodness, look at them wintergreens. What are them for? Well, we want to keep the ground all soft for the winter, so we do that. Well, why are you planting cowpeas and peanuts? Well, you see, we're trying to revive the soil. And they saw how much crops they were growing. And they said, well, we want to know, where'd you learn that? Well, you can call Dr. Carver up at the Institute. He'll bring out the Jessup wagon. He'd be happy to show you how to do it. So I started working with my neighbors. I was treating my neighbor like myself. I was doing exactly what God told me to do. And I can tell you, those people that only had a few acres, they were raising more with the few acres that they had than these corporations that buy so much land they can't even see the end of it. That's how I know we was a success. That's how I know we were doing what God wanted us to do. And I challenge all of you to do that. Go out there, look in the woods. The other day in Tuskegee, I saw a family of 4 deer. They were so beautiful. Then they got wind of my scent and they all ran back into the woods. I saw a turtle, had to pick them up, put them to the side of the road, almost ran over them. Saw jackrabbits going across the road and no sucker. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I want all of you to get in touch with that little piece of the light of the world. That spirit that God gave us through His Son. I don't know about you, but I'm going to let my little light shine. This little light of mine, come on, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Happy birthday, Alabama!
Germany outside of Africa. So I took them and I planted them. Just in a little couple of
Just the man I wanted to see. I'm a local newspaper reporter, and I'm writing an article for the local paper about how the train coming to Loachapoka has affected our tiny town. So tell me, Mr. Conductor, when did the train tracks first make it to Loachapoka?
Well, these train tracks made it to Loachapoka in 1845. It's the easternmost end of this rail line. Of course, we plan to go on to Opelika and Auburn and eventually on to Georgia. The idea, see, is to take the train from the upper Tennessee Valley in Georgia, bring it on down this way. So far, it's working.
All right, fascinating. Can you tell me more about the process? Who built it? Were there any complications? Where did it come from? Where is it going next?
That's a lot of questions. Let's see. Started in 1832. There were 7 miles built from Montgomery to Franklin by the Montgomery Railroad Company. They ran into a few financial problems, and they sold out in about, I don't know, a few years later, maybe 1835, 1840, to the Montgomery and West Point Railroad Company. Interesting, it originally started, the Creek Indians built a lot of the original line, but the Birmingham line was built with Chinese who came here. So the plan again is to go on to Columbus and then on to Atlanta.
What kind of things are carried on the train?
Well, we carry a lot of things on the train, and you know, did I mention, behind our depot there's a turntable. A lot of people don't know this, but we can drive a train on it and just turn the turntable around and they can head right back to Montgomery. So, get back to your question. We take a lot of mail from Loachapoka and back to Montgomery, and from Montgomery up here to Loachapoka. You know, originally the mail ran on the old Federal Road. You could take the Federal Road, get in the Alabama River and get down to Mobile. You could get anywhere in the world, right? But it's not really efficient. It wasn't that safe, so now we run it on the railroad, the mail, see? We also carry cattle and cotton. But we also bring goods from Montgomery up here to Loachapoka, and we take things that people produce here, we take it back to Montgomery. But probably most of our stuff is cotton and then cattle. Cattle's kind of a new thing. They drive the cattle right down these dirt roads, and we load them on the cattle cars.
Love to talk to a cattle driver. I wonder if there's one nearby. Oh, Mr. Cattle Driver, or should I call you a drover? I'm a reporter from the local paper, and I'm doing an article on the train and the impact that it's had on the surrounding communities. How many cattle did you bring in today?
Well, yes, ma'am. So to answer your first question is, you can call me a drover. I'm called a drover because I used to round up the cattle and then drove them all the way to the market. And to answer your second question, I brought 18 today, 18 steers.
All right. It sounds like as if the train has helped you get your cattle to market. Can you explain how?
Yes, ma'am. So back before the train was here in Loachapoka, I used to have to drive the cattle all the way up to Montgomery. And if anybody knows anything about horses, that's a long ways on horseback. So before the railroad, we had to load everything up, load all the cattle all the way. And it took forever, and the longer the trail, the longer you're on the trail. So you don't always, everything goes sideways sometimes.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Conductor and Mr. Drover. This has been a most enlightening conversation, and I see you must be moving on. And oh, there's a local merchant coming in, so I must excuse you.
Let's go.
Hello, sir. I'm a reporter from the local paper, and I'm doing a story about the importance of the railroad coming to town. I understand you run one of the general stores here in Loachapoka. Can you tell me about your business? What was Loachapoka like before the railroad and then after?
Yes, ma'am. Before the railroad come, I owned the only store in town. Matter of fact, it's right next door here. We sold household goods and basic farming supplies. Me and the wife and the children lived right upstairs. Now, when the railroad ended here in Loachapoka, we grew up, almost 1,300 folks. And then we ended up with 8 stores, including mine. Now, when I was a child, we only had 500 people in the town. And business was really, really sparse. Now, folks say when the train gets further east, that the things are gonna change. We'll just have to see if we can weather the storm. But as for us, we're here to stay.
Well, it sounds like things sure did change throughout the town when it came. Mr. Merchant, can you tell me, has the train affected the variety of goods and the availability in the trade center?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Before the train stopped here, we've run out of stuff. Staples we get low. Sugar, wheat, flour, salt, good cloth we get low. And then some of the farming equipment, if it broke, they would have to either do without or they'd have to come up with a way to fix it themselves. Now all that stuff comes regular. We carry all that in our general store. Now, since then, there's several other general stores, and they're more specialty stores. They deal in just dry goods, some in just a hardware store, and we have several butchers. We also have a bakery that's run by my wife, Amy. And we also get, we get specialty stuff now. We get stuff from far away. We get lobsters, we get oysters. We also get oranges and lemons now. And I hear the women folk wait on those lemons and oranges year round to make that special sauce for their gingerbread at Christmas. And we also get bourbon. We got a barrel in the store right now. Woo-wee, it sure makes for a good holiday baking.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Merchant, for sharing with me how the train has changed the little town of Loachapoka. I can't help but think there are hundreds of little towns just like Loachapoka that have been similarly changed. Well, I see the gentleman that everyone calls the banker. Excuse me, sir,
Yeah.
Could I have a moment of your time?
Certainly.
I'm a reporter doing a story on Loachapoka and the train, and can you tell me what brought you to Loachapoka, and why does everyone call you the banker when there isn't even a bank in town?
Well, let me tell you a little story about that. Early settlers here simply bartered with each other and also with the local Creek Indians. Hunters had meat and hides for leather goods, and the farmers grew extra corn and root crops. Now, a crossroads at Ball's Fort was considered the first settlement in these parts. The trading posts there helped folks trade for what they needed, and they also packed in a few extra staples like beans and coffee. But that all changed when the stagecoach started coming to town.
The stagecoach? How did the stagecoach passing through our area change things?
A stagecoach ran through this area on its way from Montgomery to Tallapoosa County. Also, there were wagon trains that headed out from Ball's Fort going west. Now, travelers coming through on the stagecoach and the wagons had cash money to buy what they needed. The local folks, since there was no bank, had to hide their money under floorboards and in walls. Now, some of the stagecoach riders, just like me, got tired of running our routes. We wanted to settle down, set down roots. We saw opportunity in areas like this, developing areas, and decided to stay put. I had a little inheritance and thought I might buy some land and become a cotton farmer. But it didn't take long for me to realize that instead of planting cotton, I could loan my money out to others to make a comfortable living like that. That way I would never have to be plowing and picking cotton or messing with mules. Lord knows I hate messing with mules. That's when folks around these parts started calling me the banker. And things were going all right, but then things really changed after that survey crew showed up in town.
The survey crew? What survey crew?
Well, one day a survey crew came to town. Talk was the train was coming our way. The next thing you know, we had ourselves a railroad, a branch line out of Montgomery. And with the train and our depot came more people and more money. New stores and new businesses opening up everywhere. Today we have a blacksmith, livery, carriage factory, tan yard, dancing and finishing schools, millinery shop, seamstress, tailor, drugstore, hardware store, dry goods store, general store, shoemaker, gunsmith, and several boarding houses. And, can you believe it, we even have 7 doctors and 5 saloons. And that's just a few of the new businesses that have opened up here. There are several grist mills and sawmills and one rock quarry just out of town on the Saugatchee Creek. And of course there's the big cotton gin. Quick as a flash, land was changing hands for new businesses and more land was being cleared for farming. Money was changing hands left and right, and I was right in the middle of it all, making loans, collecting interest.
From the picture you paint, it sounds like Loachapoka will always be a big booming city. Nothing's stopping its growth. But I'm not so sure what to expect. I've heard tell what happens to other towns when the train tracks move farther down the line. What do you think, Mr. Baker?
Well, rumor has it that survey crew is due back in town soon, coming back to our area, but this time with plans to extend those rails further east to Auburn and Opelika. They say the train will reach those areas in 2 to 3 years. After that, the train traveling folks might not have any reason to stop here. They just might pass us on by. And well, with all those new fancy dining cars and smoking lounges and sleepers, they might not have any reason to get off the train here. If I was a betting man, I might speculate that business might drop off here in Loachapoka. We might see some of our store owners close up shop and maybe move further down the line. They might be the ones getting on the outbound train themselves. That said, we're still a good little town though, surrounded by mainly small farms, but a few big cotton plantations. You know, some years, even those cotton farmers need a loan to buy seed for spring planting, and guess who they come to? They come to the banker. For sizable loans like that, we'll ride to the courthouse and have the probate clerk record the paperwork, including what collateral they'll put up for the loan. Usually it would be maybe farm equipment, stuff like that. Now, at the end of the season, after a good harvest, I'm always anxious to get back to the courthouse and write paid in full on their loan papers. Because I really don't want their cows and plows, or their mules. Lord knows I hate messing with mules.
Interesting. So it sounds like even if we lose some businesses to the end of the rail line, moving farther east, we still have folks in our area that do quite a bit of dealings with the banker. Any chance you can tell me who in Loachapoka has the most money? I can keep it strictly confidential.
Sorry, no, but as they say, cotton is king here in the South. You're a clever reporter. I bet you could do a bit more investigative reporting. Just walk down to the gin and loading dock, see whose cotton bales are being loaded on today's outbound train, and I think you have your answer.
It certainly seems there's a great story to tell about this wonderful little town and how the train and transportation have molded it into the community it is today, and how it will ultimately continue to shape and dictate its future. I better get on back. Press time waits for no man or woman. Oh, what's that I hear? Look, I believe some local merchants are coming now. Best beware. They love to meet the train and its travelers, and are sure to share with you offers to purchase their goods and wares.
Hey guys, I'm a local gunsmith, and I'm gonna try to fulfill y'all's firearms needs. This was made in about 1820. It's a flint because it uses flint against the frizz of a piece of metal to make a spark that lights the black powder in the torch on. And it lights the main charge. Make it spark. See that? But anyway, that would, if I had black powder in the pan, it would have lighted that, lighted the main charge of John Boone. This is a flint rock, and by the late 1700s, they had just about reached pinnacle of what a black powder rifle is. They're still accurate. I shoot one down here for kids every now and then. I have a 50-yard target. It's about this big. I hit it every time. That's not good for, modern firearms, but that's pretty good. This was used really from early 1700s until people just got, of course they're still used, but what everybody went to later on was, get to it, was still a heavy one. That's a Kentucky rifle.
Kentucky long rifle.
Not way too much to kick. It just weighs too much to kick. But the flintlock eventually gave way to the percussion caps. These are percussion caps. I didn't bring my percussion rifle. I just can't carry it so well. Anyway, it took the place of the flint and the prison plate here. And it had a nipple. I put the cap over it. Just put it over it. And then when you pull the trigger, the cock hit the cap and seeing fire through the torch hole, through the main chamber. That came into being in 1822 when Colt started selling them, but it was still a long time before I can sell you black powder. Looks like pepper. Y'all finished it? Y'all had your dessert and everything? But the Chinese came up with it about the 9th century. No. Yeah, you can prop it if you want. Of course, these guns use round balls. You can buy them from me, or you can buy the mold and make your own. Lead's plentiful, so you can make round balls out of lead. I sell all the little tools that you need from time to time to maintain these including, they probably didn't have toothbrushes back then, but for cleaning the pan out, these were great. Toothbrush. And if you do happen to get it, moisture is the enemy of black powder. Every now and then, even when I'm cleaning, I leave too much moisture in the breech, muzzle breech, and it won't fire. I can load it, it won't fire, so I have to take it apart. It's got 1, 2, 3 pins in it, and all the barrel comes off of it, and I can unbolt it and clean it out. It happens all the time. Okay, I'll take your orders.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad we got to stop here and see you. We didn't really plan on this for businessmen from New York City. We come down to Mobile and then rode the riverboat up to Montgomery buying cotton to send back up north to run the mills. And we brought our instruments along to entertain ourselves and our friends along the way, and we're going to play a few songs tonight. So our partners are going to start off here.
Thank We have some amazing places, some noteworthy people, and some time-honored events that we have celebrated the last 3 years. So I'd like to, in keeping with my first visit to the Alabama territory over 200 years ago, I'd like to offer a final toast. So if you will raise your glasses of wassail, or wine, or cherry cider, or hot chocolate, or coffee, with me in one final toast to the 200 years of the state of Alabama. For 200 years, your farmers have grown the crops and the fiber that has fed America and the world. Your furnaces have provided the steel that has helped to build America. Your entrepreneurs have provided jobs for millions of people. Your engineers have created the technology that has sent man to the heavens. Your port has launched vessels that have traveled throughout the world and helped to protect our freedoms here in America. And even your doctors and your nurses have saved the lives of millions of people. And even the scars from our past have helped to shape the fabric of modern day America. So here's to our Southern grace with a little dirt on our feet. May there be 200 more that are just as sweet. Cheers. Cheers.